and welcome to this special Island Stat Sports Talk. I'm your host, Earl Basin, and joining me is national swimming coach Ben Smith, as well as Maddie Moore and Jesse Washington. The trio are in Puerto Rico as we speak, preparing for CC It's also an Olympic qualifier, but also, Ben, the latest talk surrounds the fact that you're indicating that the Bermuda Olympic Association will not allow the two swimmers to attend the 2020 Olympic Games. Can you shed some light from the swimming side?
Yeah, thank you, Earl. So this has been a long process that we've been going through for quite some time. The BOA made a decision that they would not use what is called universality spots for athletes, and it has an impact on both athletics and swimming. And what happens is that those two sports being the main sports at the Olympic Games, there is a need to have representation from as many countries in the world in those competitions. So both sports have been given the ability to have one male and one female represent their country at the games, regardless of the standard that they reach. Now, what has happened is, specifically in swimming, the standards that have been set by FINA and then brought in by the IOC state that there is an A standard, which is top 14 from the last Olympics. And then there's a B standard, which really takes in most of the countries in the world that would be trying to reach that B standard. And then there is this universality spot. But the difficulty is that the way the selection process happens is that they're going to select people with the A standard first, and then they will select people that have relay spots only, and then they will select universality. So that is one male, one female from every country in the world that is willing to take on one of those spots. And the next step would be to take B qualifiers. So in essence, if Bermuda does not take a universality spot, it would mean that our athletes are forced to hit the qualifying time of the A standard, which, as I said, is top 14 from the last Olympics, which is a significant challenge considering that at present, only 10% of the world swimming organizations are represented at the A standard. Knowing that this was going to be a case, we have been trying to appeal to the Bermuda Olympic Association to not implement this rule. I gave a final kind of last-ditch plea on the 19th of this month, knowing that the letters had to be in on the 20th. I sent as much detail as I could in the letter that I put forward, and that was followed by having support come in from FINA, from multiple people from FINA, from WANA, which is our regional body. And we also saw, some support come in from the Athletes Commission. So many people from international federation side have showed that it's important for Bermuda to be represented. One of the arguments that was brought forward by the BOA to make this change was on long-term athlete development. So that's something that's near and dear to my heart, because I believe that these two athletes show exactly what long-term athlete development looks like. They both started off as swimmers in Bermuda, right? 8-year-olds, without even being at a point of having a dream to be Olympians. They go through their learn to swim process. They go through their age group swimming, and then they started to show the ability to be at that next level. They then get selected for CARIFTA. They go to CC They continue to develop. They medal in our regional competitions. And then they move on to be able to represent in meets in Canada and meets in the US. And then we go to what I would call world junior events with Youth Commonwealth Games, Junior Pan Pacifics, and then they went to Junior Olympics. So they continue to progress. Both of them then travel overseas to take up NCAA scholarships. So not only are they top athletes, they're also top students. They've done everything that's expected of them. What we want to see from our young people is a positive performance in life. And both of these athletes have continued to show that on every step of the way. And they are nothing but perfect examples of what we want from our young people. They are role models for the swimmers that are coming behind them, and they're following in a long line of really good swimmers coming from Bermuda over an extended period of time. So with that, it's extremely frustrating that we've been put in this situation. It is not something that normally I would like to go public with, something that in my mind is negative and it doesn't make sense. But when you have young people that have sacrificed so much to get to this point, and your international federation and the International Olympic Committee and all of our regional partners are looking for Bermuda to be represented at the games, it's very strange to me that we would have our Bermuda Olympic Committee put obstacles in front of these young people. Um, when we arrived in Puerto Rico, I knew that this was something that we were trying to fight for them behind closed doors. But once that decision came from the BOA, I had to break that news to these two athletes that have flown to Puerto Rico, trained, prepared, gone through all of the COVID regulations and everything else that we've had to go through in order for them to swim fast, to represent their country. Flying that flag and representing Bermuda is important. And it's also important for us to show the rest of Bermuda what we are capable of. And to have this taken away from them doesn't make any sense. Now, there is still some last ditch effort, behind closed doors, trying to get this to happen, to persuade the BOA to change their mind. We're hoping that FINA can continue to push to make this happen. But we're about to start competition. We're about to have these guys give their best effort to represent Bermuda here in Puerto Rico, with the hope that then, a couple of weeks from now, they'll be able to travel to Tokyo. It is interesting when you see the size of the team that we have presently for Bermuda, and understand that, we have a young triathlete that fell into this same situation where the paperwork was not filled out because the BOA wants to be more restrictive instead of allowing our athletes to represent. We have our athletics athletes that are falling into this same category. Why are we putting obstacles in the way of young Bermudians when the international federations are saying that they want them there to represent Bermuda? It's the opposite of everything that is mandated by the IOC. All you have to do is look at the BOA website, and it will tell you what the Olympics is and what the Olympic movement stands for. And this is in the opposite direction of everything that they have said that they're about. So to me, what does that look like?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've said that some things are going on behind closed doors. So last ditch efforts to stave this off. But as a coach, because they're there now and they're preparing to compete, as a coach, what do you tell these athletes to make sure that they still give their best this coming weekend or this coming weekend into the weekend?
Well, the message doesn't change, right? From the time they were little, the message has always been, you can only do what you can control. So the only thing that they can control is that they're going to show up to the meet and they're going to give 100% effort because they've done the work and they're prepared to swim fast. Everything that happens outside of being in between those lane lines is out of their control. So it's my job to fight for them. It's the job of everybody within swimming to fight for them. And they have to just continue to do the job that they've set out to do, which is to swim their best and represent Bermuda at the highest level.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that they've taken away the universality bid. How long has that been in effect?
So I believe it was 2017. So directly after the last Olympics, there was this push to move away from using universality. I was against it right from the beginning. I have no idea why this was a concept that was brought up. It doesn't match with our ideals. It's as if we've all of a sudden decided that reaching the podium is the only goal of Olympism, which is just not the way it works. If you go through the history of Bermuda in sports, when it comes to the Olympic movement, we have one medalist ever. And the truth of the matter is we actually haven't treated that medalist very well. So why is it that all of a sudden medals is the only line? Being part of this process and developing young people to be worldly, to communicate with each other, to help one another, to take care of their community. That's what the Olympic movement is about. When they go to the Youth Olympic Games, they spend a lot of time outside of the pool because that is the concept. They want to have a community around the world. That's what the Olympics is truly about. It just seems that we've lost our way a little bit. And when I say we, I mean people within the BOA seem to have decided that putting obstacles up is the answer. I do not understand what the benefit is supposed to be to Bermuda and to young Bermudians by putting further obstacles in front of them. If they reach the standards that have been laid out by their international federation and approved by their local federation, why would the BOA want to get in the way of that? How is that a benefit to Bermuda? This isn't a cost issue. When you understand that the international federations, the IOC, are going to pay for these athletes to be at the games, they want them there. So there's no financial reason why this is an issue. So it begs the question: what is the benefit? Who is winning by breaking the dreams of our young people?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me get a chance to get to speak with Maddie and Jesse. Guys, you're there. Obviously, kind of bad news for you, but you still have an opportunity in the pool to prove what you can do. Maddie, take us through what goes through your mind when Ben tells you Sunday night that, or Saturday night, whichever night it was you guys arrived, that you now have this obstacle.
It was actually funny. We sat down and Ben was like, "Okay, we need to discuss something like that the BOA decided." And I was like, "Oh, what? Do they want us to get the A cut now?" And he was like, "Actually, yeah, they do." And I was like, "Okay." So obviously, like I've had my sights setting on the B cut, which I know I'm fully capable of doing, and I'm extremely prepared to swim fast this weekend, and that nothing's going to change that. It's just a bit disheartening to see the people that should want you to succeed don't want to send you. It's just really confusing, and we've put in countless hours of work in the pool and the gym, and in sports psychiatry, trying to get our mental side right, and it's really just a confusing situation.
Jesse, for you've been kind of locally based throughout this time, but gotten through all the hurdles of the COVID lockdown and so forth. But what has it taken you to get to where you are today in preparation to swim in the CCK?
Well, after the Florida meet of the Iwana Cup, I was able to get back home and got solid training in. And so I was fully prepared for this meet. So when Ben delivered the disheartening news on Sunday, it didn't change what I was focused on. I've been focused on coming here and swimming fast. I'm still prepared. It's just been on my mind a little bit more, thinking about how there's a lack of support in Bermuda, which I didn't really think was the situation. Like Ben said, this is new news to us. A lot of this was happening behind closed doors. And so, yeah, I'm just out here ready to swim fast.
For you, Maddie, if by chance over the weekend you do make the A cut, how do you feel going to represent the country?
I mean, it would always be an honor and a privilege to be able to represent Bermuda at the Olympic Games. I mean, that wouldn't change no matter what, but I don't know. It's just knowing that the people who don't support what the BOA should stand for and does stand for are going to be there and, smiling to our faces, but, knowing that they didn't want us there in the first place.
And of course, when you start talking about universality, they put you in different events. What event were you scheduled to swim in, if given the opportunity, Maddie?
I'd be in the 100 freestyle because that's my highest FINA point race.
Okay, and what would it have been for you, Jess?
I'd be the same event, the 100 free.
Oh, okay, all right. Are you guys swimming those events this weekend?
Yes, that's the second day of the meet, so Friday.
Okay. Now, how far are you off the qualification time for that particular event, Maddie?
So for the B standard, I'm at a 56.5 right now, and the time I need is a 56.01.
Mm-hmm.
So a fingernail away.
What about you, Jess?
The B standard for the 100 free for the men's is a 50.03, and I'm a 51.4 right now. But as Ben said, the B standard doesn't really matter anymore. And the A standard is the automatic qualification, which is 14th place from the previous Olympics. And that time is a 48.5, I believe, which even in some developed countries, there aren't swimmers hitting that time. It's an extremely fast time.
Mm. Now, we all know that, of course, there is another Olympic Games in a matter of 3 years' time. Does this, I know it sets you back this time around, but does this deter you from your dream of trying to qualify for the next Olympics if and in fact you don't make it this time around?
No, I actually got on the phone with my university coach, Lisa, after Ben told me, and she was like, Maddie, this does not change our plan. Like, if this messes you up for this Olympics, like in 3 years, it's not going to be a question of if you go, it's when you go. So that's always nice to hear. And honestly, it's kind of just feeding the fire within me, wanting to get better. So.
What about you, Jess?
Yeah, the same is true for me. I'd keep going until 2024. Still think I have a lot of development left in me, a lot of potential that I haven't unlocked yet, and so yeah, I'll be pushing for 2024 as well.
Ben, can you slip back in real quick? Because I want to ask. Obviously, it's huge disappointment whenever someone's dreams are dashed for whatever reasons there may be. But how do you then, because usually we have the 4-year cycle for an Olympic period. We have the Commonwealth Games next year. I believe also in the next 2 years you have the Pan Am Games and CAC Games, and then right after that is the Olympics. So how do we ensure we keep these two and those that are right behind them inspired, swimming fast, doing what's needed to be done in order to make that qualification time? And obviously behind closed doors, how do we then ensure that there's some level of understanding of what you consider the Olympic movement to be in allowing athletes to compete?
So, Earl, the first thing I'd like to say really is about how you develop young people going forward. So I lined up all of the pieces that we've been able to achieve so far with Maddie and Jesse that have led to the point that they are right now. But just as an example, Roy Allen Birch went to the 2008 Olympics on Universality. In 2012, he reaches the B standard. In 2015, a year out from the qualification, he beats Cullen Jones, who was a medalist at the Olympics and was on the cusp of hitting the A standard. That's the development. Each step of the way, he was progressing and showing the group behind him what it takes, the dedication, the staying focused, the staying part of the program. And he has a catastrophic injury. And I highlight that particular position because somebody that was showing these guys what it takes to be part of it, he has that catastrophic injury, and a year later he comes back to make the B cut. And the truth is that was an international story that Bermuda didn't show him the same level of love that internationally he received. This is an ongoing problem with Bermuda. We do not seem to embrace our athletes and what they're trying to achieve. Most of the news in Bermuda will quickly talk about when somebody does something negative. But here we have two young athletes that have done everything we've asked them to do and set an example for people coming behind them, and we're watching somebody tear them down. So the answer is they will continue to work hard. They will continue to focus. They will continue to do everything that is expected of them. And I still hold out hope that the BOA will make a change, because it is the right thing to do, to allow these athletes to go and represent and continue to develop, so that they can get that inspiration from this games to work towards the next. Flora Duffy, who is our world champion, she goes to her first Olympics and she doesn't perform very well. She goes to her second Olympics and she's injured. You know, she's a world champion after going through all of that process. We didn't even learn from our own individuals that have shown that kind of progress. To me, it seems like there are people that are trying to close doors instead of open them.
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously, there's still a lot of work to be done behind the scenes on that matter, while you guys take care of the other matter in which where you're at right now. And obviously, it's time to turn that attention to that and let those, I guess, behind the closed doors do what they have to do. But what is the 11th hour or the 12th hour? What is that for? Well, obviously, qualification is this week. But when is the last chance you have to qualify for Tokyo?
So Sisagain is the last possible qualification period. It ends at the end of this competition, which is why this was the meet that we've come to. And both athletes have been preparing to try to hit their standards here. The deadline for signing the paper was midnight on Sunday. We have had some correspondence from FINA to the BOA asking them to reconsider since that deadline, which gives us a little bit of hope that there potentially is a door that's still slightly ajar. I just hope that the population of Bermuda understands that we should be supporting our athletes, and that they voice that opinion loudly, so that maybe some new thought within the BOA comes out that will allow us to make the change that is necessary for not just the swimmers, but for the athletic athletes and potentially the triathletes that fall into this same category. They have sacrificed already. They've given up social time. They've given up family time. These sports, it's not easy to do what we're expecting them to do, and they've done it. And now they're on the cusp of the goal. And instead of us saying, you know what, we're going to cheer you over the finish line, we've got somebody saying, you know what, we're not going to allow you to cross the finish line. And to me, it's just a travesty that we have people that are standing in the way of our young people. And to be honest with you, the part of the response that came from the BOA on why they were not letting them, it actually was disrespectful to some of the athletes that have already represented Bermuda at the Olympic Games. And I believe that that's something that needs to be addressed. Instead of lifting our people up, we are pushing them down. And that should not be happening from an organization that's ideals are so significant. And that's what the Olympic movement is. And that's why I've actually been striving for so long to push our athletes for it, because it's so important. We need to get back on the right path. We need to get the right mindset back on. And to be honest with you, if there are people there that are working against our young people instead of for them, then we need to question why they are there and whether they should be.
Well, let's hope that those talks are positive, and hopefully they're done sooner rather than later. Hopefully, the Olympic Association will come up with a statement regarding this ongoing saga that's kind of affecting most of the island right now. We're looking for good news.
We're looking for good news.
Yeah. But to the swimmers, I want to say be encouraged, stay positive. I know you two very well. I've seen you perform most of your life. So all I want to say is do us proud this weekend. Do yourself proud. Don't let anything hold you back. And Ben, you make sure that you keep them on the straight and narrow and focus to what they have to do this time around. And hopefully we don't get to this position again in 3 years' time.
Most definitely not. But thank you for this opportunity, Earl.
Okay. All right. Guys, be good. Good luck. All the best.
Thank you.
Okay.